Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. My boy Jordan Bowman's in the back. We will bring him on momentarily. But before we get into today's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. Also, hit that like button and share this video in any college football circles or groups you are in. Send it to your friends. Tell them to come check us out. Tell them to come hang out with me and Jordan Bowman and talk a little Clemson football and college football. But we got a great show for you tonight, guys. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my buddy, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing I think I'm doing pretty awesome. It's been a good week. Slow news day for Clemson though. Like not really much going on. Like I was kind of disappointed that I really didn't have much to talk about. We were talking about it before the show. I was like, did anything even happen? Like, you were sending me articles about stuff we could possibly talk about, but there didn't seem to be much on the list, and it was kind of bare bones. So unfortunately, this is going to be a quick show.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna be a tough show, man. In the thick of the off season, not a whole lot going on. I don't know what we could possibly talk about tonight. Maybe they're right. Maybe Clemson fell off.
Yeah, it's over, man. Absolutely, it's crickets from the recruiting weekend. It's a shame.
The fall from grace is painful. Fall from grace is painful. All joking aside, guys, thank all of you for joining us today. We got a ton to talk about. If you're a Clemson fan at all, you are fully aware of the I guess both weekend and week that Clemson has had on the recruiting trail. Dabo Swinney pulls the rabbit out of the hat again somehow, some way. I guess he hasn't lost his way, as some would like to think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The reports of Clemson's demise, the reports of Clemson's fall from grace has certainly been exaggerated greatly.
Very much so.
What a weekend, man. I mean, I had my hopes. I was optimistic, leading into the weekend. I thought, the collection of talent that Clemson is bringing in this weekend is definitely formidable. And, if you've been following Clemson recruiting long enough, you know how powerful a Clemson visit is. And so that if you can get guys on campus and let Dabo work his magic, things can really happen. But I did not in my wildest dreams think that last weekend was going to go as spectacularly as it did. And even during the weekend, I was hearing that it was going really, really well, but I did not expect the returns this quickly that we got from that weekend. But
it's pretty crazy. Apparently, a Clemson recruiting weekend in June is just the secret sauce that we need in order to really kick off our recruiting class. We saw what happened last year when Dabo did it for the very first time. And I think this philosophy of bringing all these big time recruits in the same weekend and having them all around each other and, have them, it's not just the coaches out there, it's current players on the roster putting in work for the university. It's the support staff. It's the whole organization of the weekend. People rave about it. People talk about how well put together it is, about how much it really gives a snapshot into Clemson as a university and more so Clemson as a football program. I did not think it would go quite this well. I remember back to our last show last Thursday, Jordan. I remember us talking, and I even asked you the question. I was like, hey, man, if you had to pick someone that was going to recruit on the spot this weekend, who would it be? Could we possibly see any on-the-spot commitments this weekend? And, kind of what you said, you were like, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, but we got a good chance with a lot of these guys. And then lo and behold, apparently, Clemson knocked it out of the park. They blew it out of the water with, a lot of these recruits. Most notably, the first domino to drop this weekend was none other than Sammy Brown, a huge get for the class. And I think he was the first domino, and we're starting to already see the snowball effect from that.
Absolutely. And, that's a great time to just transition and talk about it. Let's start with Sammy Brown because
let's start with him.
this was probably the most. This was the recruitment that Clemson had invested the most amount of time in, honestly, by far. I mean, understanding what Sammy's background, his history, his with Clemson, his parents, his family, their connections with the upstate. This was a recruitment that really spanned a decade. Sammy Brown had been camping at Clemson since he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's been familiar with Dabo Swinney and the staff for a really long time. He's built those relationships. So this was a recruitment that Clemson spent a lot of time on, and that was why he was the first offer in this class. And, we talked about it, last week on Thursday. We felt that Clemson had a really good shot. We felt like they were in it. But you were battling in-state Georgia, who had a lot of pull as well. And he had visited UGA as many times as he had visited Clemson throughout the cycle. So, it was going to be a tough pool, and especially considering all the momentum that the Dogs seemed to have coming off of his last visit.
Right.
And Clemson completely blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
He had, his plan was to take all of his official visits and make a decision sometime early July.
Yeah.
And he had said that, if he had felt like if he had gone on a visit and he kind of felt compelled to commit, he would, but he fully intended on going through, taking all his visits, talking it over with his family, and coming to a decision. So to see him just commit less than 24 hours after the official visit weekend ended is pretty incredible. And, he has a really good relationship with Dabo. Obviously, he's been familiar with him for a long time, but he also built a really good relationship with Wes Goodwin. They bonded over fishing. Sammy he's a Georgia boy through and through.
There you go, man.
And he's not one for the limelight. He's not, really out in the open and always trying to, draw attention to himself. He likes, being off to himself sometimes and kind of like the more simple things in life. And they were able to bond really well over that. And he just felt the family atmosphere. He felt compelled to commit to Clemson. He felt like this was the best spot for him. And he liked their plan for him, on the field as well. And it just felt like a match made in heaven. And he decided to let Dabo and the staff know that he was committing. And this is the cornerstone, pretty much commitment of this class. I mean, he's the type of recruit where a commitment from him, spawns and a string of other commitments, because he's such a high profile guy that, other recruits take notice. And so this was a really awesome get for Clemson, and to get him to shut it down before he even took his Georgia visit is pretty incredible. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing how it all kind of came together just perfectly for Clemson this weekend. I had no idea. We talked about it last week, and you mentioned it. We really thought he was going to go through because that's kind of what he had said. He was going to go through. He's going to take all his commitments. And then he talked about that 2-week break that he was going to have off of, between summer training and then getting really into his season work for his senior year of high school football. And he talked about taking kind of that last week of June and then that first week in July. Those were kind of his 2 weeks that he was going to have off and really sit and think about his decision and all that kind of stuff. So I was fully expecting him to do that. So in my mind, we were going to be sitting on pins and needles the rest of this month, just hoping to land that big recruit, because it was one that we truly need. If you look at our roster, and this Sammy Brown commitment is huge, not only because of who he is as a prospect and a talent. I mean, the dude's, out there freaking deadlifting 500 pounds and doing all kind of craziness, man. He's a running back that runs, very well for his high school. He's a guy with speed that can go side to side. I mean, this dude is the truth. But as good as we feel about our linebackers right now at Clemson, I don't think Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter are going to be here this time next year in a Clemson uniform, right? We'll still be rooting for them. They'll still be, Tigers for life. But I truly do see those two dudes moving on to the NFL. So Sammy Brown could come in and be an instant starter for Clemson at the linebacker position, which would be huge. So I think he sees some of that potential. And to your point, he's been coming to Clemson for a long time. He's been going to Dabo Swinney camps since he was in you said the 8th grade, right?
Even before that, he was going to camps when he was little, like 8 years old. So
okay, yeah, there you go. I mean,
his family, his parents are Furman grads, so he knows the upstate, and he's been to Clemson. Right. His family definitely has a lot of respect and love for Clemson. So yeah, he's been around the program a long time, and he felt like family. And yeah, Clemson did a good job of selling it to him.
Yep.
And that's what makes, and we'll talk about it later, but that's kind of what makes a Clemson visit so special, because, a lot of programs preach family, but I don't think there's a better program in the country that does a better job of selling that to recruits than Clemson. So just a monumental commitment, considering who you beat to get him as well.
Right.
Back-to-back, national champions in Georgia.
Man, that's tough coming out of the state of Georgia. Yeah. With his, he went to Georgia several times. He was there a lot. But Clemson comes in and steals him. I honestly didn't know that it was even a possibility for him to recruit on the spot, or commit on the spot. And then I heard our boy Jason Priester, who contributes to the Mark Rogers channel and here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. And he was saying that was like one of his first interview with him. He kind of told him that, like, hey, man, if I go somewhere and it feels right, I'm just going to shut it down. So it's pretty cool that Clemson was able to put together a weekend that not only him, that his family felt comfortable with as well, right? Because that is a dynamic that a lot of people don't talk about. You're not just recruiting the player, you're recruiting the entire family, and you got to convince those parents that, you're going to do right by their son. And there's none better that I would trust than Dabo Swinney to pull that trigger. All he's got to do is get him in his house and, be doing dunk contests and all kind of craziness, whatever Dabo does when he gets in there. And these guys just eat it up, man. And it's awesome to see. It's a good flex to be able to have that as a program and just be that different. Because any recruits that you hear, even the guys that we don't get that commit to us, you hear them talk about the Clemson visits and specifically this weekend and how different Clemson kind of goes about things when it's a big recruiting weekend. So all good things, man. All good things coming out of this weekend for Sammy Brown. But he was not our only commit this weekend. Or not this weekend, but this week. Our second kind of domino from this big recruiting weekend was none other than TJ Moore. Did that surprise you that he was the first receiver of that kind of group of 6 or so that came to the weekend to commit? Because he had the Florida visit that he was still supposed to do, right? The official Florida visit. So
yeah, it was definitely a surprise. It was long thought going into the weekend that Florida had, Clemson was very much in it, but Florida had a leg up in the recruitment. But he came in. similar to Sammy Brown, and just he was blown away by the visit. And he really felt at home. And the staff did a really good job. Tyler Grisham, he has a really good bond with him. And he felt like this was the place where he wanted to be. They did a good job of selling him the idea that, Clemson is trying to get back to the mountaintop, and they sold him on, the history that Clemson has at receiver. And they want to build wide receiver U back. And, TJ, he really bought into that. He comes from a great family as well. And they loved the visit and everything about it. And it was perfect for him. And he decided, I'm going to shut it down. And that's just a huge win. I can't overstate it. And we're going to get to the even bigger win shortly. But this one was awesome, especially just we were on pins and needles about the wide receiver recruiting this cycle. The last few have been, such a I wouldn't say they've been poor, but they definitely have not been to the standard that Clemson had set in years past.
Yeah, they've been a little underwhelming. For sure.
And so to win out and get him to shut it down over the weekend when Clemson was not perceived to be the leader is awesome. TJ is even in the rankings right now, he's a really highly rated guy. He's anywhere from a 150. He's like a top 150-ish player. I think 24/7 in their own rankings has him as a top 100 player. I think he's going to be even higher than that by the time the cycle ends. I truly think he's a top 50 type talent at receiver. He's got the size that you want, the speed, the route running. He's a fantastic route runner. He's kind of a do-it-all type of receiver, and Clemson has sorely missed that kind of multidimensionality that we just haven't had in past years. And this is the type of elite wide receiver that can really change the outlook of a team at the wide receiver position. And it's a huge win. You can't overstate it. So absolutely fantastic to get TJ in this class. And I'm excited to see where when he gets on campus, which he won't be in early enrollee, unfortunately, because Tampa Catholic is private and they don't do early graduation. But I think he's one of those players that can come in and contribute right away. They're a very, very good school. He's well coached. He's very polished already. He's the type of guy that can come in like an Antonio Williams that is an instant impact guy, and one that Clemson greatly needed. So.
Yeah, an absolutely killer get for Clemson, and to your point, a lot has been said about the Clemson wide receiving core, right? Starting with the 2020 season, and then rolling into. Or starting, with the 2021 season, 2022 season, the offensive production really suffered. And Tony Elliott took a lot of blame for that. Our wide receiver core was really banged up, really injured. We caught some tough breaks there. But overall, the offensive production wasn't there. And a lot of that has been blamed on the quarterback. A lot of that has been blamed on receivers, specifically receiver development, and maybe missing on some dudes that Clemson normally hits on. And Tyler Grisham he's taken his fair share of shots from both Clemson fans and other national sports commentators and sports writers and stuff out there. But I think Tyler Grisham is kind of making a little bit of recovery. With kind of the class that he has already put together as far as the wide receivers. Now, does that mean that all questions are answered? No, he's still going to have to bring these dudes in, develop them, and the production is going to have to greatly increase. But I do think that he has quieted at least the noise that some people were saying about him maybe not being able to bring in the big blue chip wide receivers to Clemson. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, kind of how you're looking at Tyler Grisham after these commitments that we've seen.
Well, I guess let's talk about Bryant Wesco and then
Okay.
kind of put a bow on it and then talk about Tyler Grisham. But yeah, Tyler Grisham obviously comes in and he lands another, fall the same day following TJ Moore's commitment. He lands a 5-star Bryant Wesco
just a few hours later.
Yep. And this was the biggest get of them all. Well, not the biggest get of them all, but the biggest get Clemson's gotten at wide receiver since T. Higgins. I mean, he's the first. He's the first 5-star. Well, he will be a 5-star, and when the class ends, and he's already a 5-star on the top 247. This is the highest rated wide receiver that Clemson has gotten since T. Higgins, and he's the real deal. He's the real deal. I mean, 6'2", 170. Probably, and I've talked about it already. I think he's the best route runner in this class. He hasn't even completely filled out his frame. He's got great speed. He separates. He wins at the point of attack. He's a true elite wide receiver one type of talent, and that is huge. Can't state it enough. And this get was awesome because, like TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco was not considered to be favoring Clemson heading into the weekend. I mean, it was long thought for a really long time that Bryant Wesco was going to end up in Norman to play for Oklahoma. And he came into the weekend and he was absolutely blown away. Just just like TJ Moore. They really like, those two have a good relationship. They really bonded with a lot of the other recruits that were there. They bonded really well with the staff. There's a camaraderie in this group so far, and Bryant he bought into everything that Clemson was selling to him. Obviously, Garrett Riley played a huge part in this commitment as well. Garrett was recruiting him while he was at TCU, and so they had already been familiar with each other. So that was a big deal as well.
Right.
And Bryant felt really good about shutting it down, and he felt that he was at the place that he wanted to be for the next 3 to 4 years. And so he pulls the trigger right just immediately after TJ Moore, same day, and now Clemson has 2 elite wide receiver prospects in their class.
Elite.
Yeah.
These dudes are the real deal, man. I couldn't be happier for the developments after the Sammy Brown commitment. I mean, we were riding on a high, and then I think you texted me the TJ Moore commitment, and then what was it? Maybe an hour or two later, Brian Wesco, here he comes. And it's just like, I'm sure your Twitter feed was blowing up. I was scouring the internet, all kind of articles, YouTube videos, everything talking about, Clemson recruiting and how well the weekend did. And that's kind of why I like how Clemson does this weekend, because they kind of get these guys together and you see what can happen. If you put a proper weekend together, if you put, a well thought out, well planned weekend together, and you're authentic, and they feel that, and their families feel that, and then they get together and they get excited because they're talking about, we could play together and we could do this and we can do this. What if we convince this dude over here to come with us? Hey, are you going to commit? I'm going to commit. Are you going to commit? Yeah, I'm going to commit, right? And then it kind of snowballs from there. And that's kind of how I see, obviously I have no knowledge of the inner workings of this weekend and what these dudes' conversations were to each other. But I guarantee you these three dudes are not surprised by their commitments. You heard chirping from guys that were already committed to Clemson that were there this weekend, and they were hitting Twitter up and they were saying,
Did we lose Craven? You still there? I think he's frozen. Is it just me, or
at least that we're at this weekend?
I might be tripping. Might be my internet.
All right.
We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, awesome. All right, you're back. You froze up for a second. Yeah,
I didn't even know I was frozen up. I was just sitting there going on a tirade, and then I looked over. I was like, "Oh, I'm frozen." Okay, cool. So we're back, though. We're back.
Okay. Well, yep. It wouldn't be an all-in show without technical difficulty. So that's kind of how we do things around here.
This is what we do. This is we got to keep it interesting. We got to keep our audience on their toes. We always got to keep them guessing. Yeah.
That's what we do. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
But to your point, well, I don't know what your point was because I missed a lot of it. But
what's the last thing that I said? I don't know when I froze. So
you froze kind of when you were talking about you were saying you didn't know what these conversations were to each other, but you knew they weren't surprised by each other's commitments. There's you were basically getting to that they have a really good camaraderie with each other and they have a great relationship.
And that's how this stuff kind of snowballs, right? These recruits start talking to each other, and that's why the Sammy Brown commitment's so big, the TJ Moore commitment's so big, the Brian Wesco, all our commits that were already there, convincing them. We have our players that are on the current roster spending time with those dudes. Sammy Brown talked about how he spent time with Barrett Carter, and how much that meant to him and how cool he that was for him to be able to see kind of an inside look from a guy that's going through it right now, right? So he can get the authentic take from a player that's been through it, that's been through the recruiting process like he's going through, and then into his Clemson career. And I'm just super thrilled about how it all went. And I do not think we are done. I do not think we are done. And I commend Tyler Grisham for the work that he's done, bringing in all these these two Clemson receivers so far. Huge blue chip recruit guys, guys that can change a program. They can change an offense. They can elevate your program to new heights. And with that, I did have a question. I think Clemson's number for receivers is 2.
Yes.
So are they done with receivers, or are they going to have more commit? Are they going to expand that past 2?
Yes and no. Okay. So I'll explain that a little bit. Yeah, it's true. The number of scholarship spots that Clemson plans to dedicate to receivers is 2. And obviously those 2 have just been taken up by Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. Yep. However, Clemson, Dabo in particular, always, every single cycle keeps a scholarship or 2, in his back pocket when he feels like he wants to swing back on a prospect that maybe is still weighing their options. And so I do think that Clemson is probably done at wide receiver. I don't think it's I don't think it's out of the question that they possibly add another. It depends on which one that wants to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, we all know that Clemson hosted Mike Matthews um, over the weekend as well. Really enjoyed his visit. They did a really
Yep.
they put their best foot forward. I mean, he's been considered a Tennessee lean for a while, at least since his most recent visit. But I think Clemson did a good job of giving him something to think about. He still plans to take all of his, the rest of his visits, and then make a decision. But I do think that Clemson could always, if Mike Matthews wants to be part of the class, they can take him as an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
because they do have a spot allocated for athletes, and then obviously they want him to play receiver. They're giving him the option to play both, but I think he wants to play receiver, and Clemson wants him to play receiver. So I don't think there's going to be much dispute over that. So if Mike Matthews wants to come, I think Clemson would take him. And I will say this: I think they would also be willing to expand the wide receiver limit a little bit if Cam Coleman wants to come as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that means that Alex Taylor and Braylon Staley, it's not looking like, very likely that they will be part of the class.
Right.
And I'll say this about those two: I really like them as prospects. I mean, Alex Taylor. I think he's a do-it-all type of guy. I think he's a really solid player. Braylon Staley's really athletic, really fast. I think both would have been really good additions to the class, if they were, especially if they were like a third wide receiver taken.
Mm-hmm.
But spots filled up. They knew this going into the visit, that there was only two spots available. This was something that they were made aware of way early in the process. So, none of them are surprised or taken aback by the events. But it's part of the business. It's how these things work, unfortunately.
Yep.
And that's just kind of how it is. But I do think if Clemson wants to take a third receiver, I think they would find a way to get a Mike Matthews or a Cam Coleman, especially, into the class. So we'll see how it goes. It probably won't be till official visit season gets through, and probably not even till early signing day, because it seems like it. I get the vibe from Cam Coleman's recruitment, especially, that he's going to take it the distance. So we'll see how that plays out. And honestly, I think Cam Coleman, it's possible Cam Coleman, kind of waiting and dragging it out longer could make it more likely he ends up in the class than not, just because, a lot can change from now until December. So
yeah, spots can open up. So yeah, that's not a guarantee that a spot won't become available.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess if they do expand the hard wide receiver number to more, it would probably be for him, because he's looking to kind of drag out his commitment until probably last minute type deal, which would be an amazing boost going right into early signing day, right? So good stuff. So Clemson has a ton of momentum. We had the Sammy Brown commitment, the two other commitments, TJ Moore, Brian Wesco, that we've already detailed pretty thoroughly. So if you look at last season or last off season, the June weekend really kind of snowballed for Clemson, right? I think they got 12 commits out of that weekend. So I don't think Clemson's momentum on the recruiting trail is over by any means. I think they're going to sign a lot more of these guys. Any ideas on who would be next, or whose commitment date's coming up the soonest? Who's kind of looking to nail down their commitment before they start their senior season of high school football?
Yeah, there's a few that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. I think the most notable is 4-star cornerback Corian Gibson. He was considered a Clemson lean going into the visit. Um, Nothing has changed uh, to kind of curb that or change things
Mm-hmm.
coming out of it. So I've got a close eye on him. I think there's a really good chance he commits in the near future, the very near future. Um, they did a fantastic job with a lot of the offensive line recruits that were in there. I think they put their best foot forward for Michael Luini. I think they did a good job of kind of getting themselves in the door there. Don't expect him to commit anytime soon. He's going to take his visits. William Satterwhite, thought they did a fantastic job with him. Casey Poe as well. So I'm keeping an eye on those offensive line guys. Fletcher Westfall as well. Looking at the defensive line, obviously the big fish that they brought in this weekend was defensive lineman Edric Houston out of Beaufort, Georgia. He really enjoyed his visit. He really likes what Clemson's plan for him is defensively, and especially in with comparison to some of the schools that are competing with Clemson for his services, like Georgia and Alabama. Clemson is obviously they're an even front. That means that a guy like Edric Houston on the edge, he's not going to be taking on double teams nearly as much. He's not going to be responsible for two gaps, and I think that really appeals to him as opposed to Georgia and Alabama, who are are more odd fronts. They have to take on double teams. They're really there to eat up space and free up room for the linebackers to kind of get after the quarterback. And I think that Clemson's defensive scheme really appeals to him as well. So I think they did a really good job of kind of selling that to him. So I'm watching to see how his recruitment kind of plays out. But I think Clemson has established themselves as if they're not the front runner, I think they're one of the front runners, and I like where Clemson stands right now. So looking at him, but there's a lot of guys that had really awesome weekends. So nothing would surprise me. And with Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, two guys I did not expect to shut down and leave the recruitment. With them shutting it down, anything can happen. So. But if I had to put my money on the guy that I think is going to commit next, I would go with Corian Gibson. I feel really good about where Clemson stands with him, and I think a commitment could be coming shortly. So, all in all, successful weekend to say the least. This is something that this weekend has the potential to be even more productive than last year's, and that's saying a bunch. So.
Absolutely. What would be in your opinion, what would be the position that we need to focus on the most? Seeing the guys that we have in the class so far, we got 11 recruits. I think we jumped up to 8th in the country, according to 247 Sports. I think on On3, we broke the top 5 as far as our recruiting class so far. This cycle, which is amazing, coming off a super major weekend. But what is our greatest position of need that we have yet to address in this recruiting cycle so far?
I think it's got to be offensive line. I think that you have a lot of really great options. I really like a lot of the guys that Clemson brought in this weekend. I think that should be the priority going forward. You've got the wide receiver, you've got your wide receivers in. Even if you don't get a Mike Matthews or a Cam Coleman, this is a really good wide receiver haul, even just with just the two. So I think offensive line is your number one priority, and getting some wins there. if you win the recruitment of, say, of Fletcher Westphal, who is one of my favorites, I think that would be huge. Casey Poe is fantastic as well, and they did a really good job with him this weekend. William Satterwhite, like where Clemson stands with him as well. I mean, so I think getting those guys into the fold, it would be huge. And
Yeah.
the thing is with offensive linemen is they typically shut down their recruitments early because, one, they're not, they don't have the sexiest of recruitments. They don't always get the love and sunshine that a lot of like the quarterbacks and the skill guys typically get.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are just looking to get through their visits and make a decision usually before their senior year. So I think you could see a lot of these offensive line dominoes start to fall within the next month or two. So I think Clemson is, put their best foot forward with a lot of those guys, and I expect them to get a really nice pull from that group as well. So yeah, it's got to be offensive line. I think Thomas Austin is putting in serious work. I think he's shown his recruiting chops as an offensive line coach. So I definitely expect him to pull in another really nice haul and really just continue to upgrade Clemson up front, with the offensive line. I think I think already Clemson has trended upward significantly, currently and for the future at offensive line. So continuing to do that is a big deal.
You got to like the body style shift that Clemson's made on the offensive line. So, obviously much bigger, much stronger, kind of shying away from the undersized, quicker guys. And really just you can see the shift with the guys that Clemson has already brought on campus. They're the guys that are already there, but then also you can see the size and the type of dudes that they're really recruiting on the offensive line with all their offers so far. So, I'm sure Thomas Austin is out there working his butt off and doing all that he can to bring the best offensive lineman he can. And he seems to be doing a good job developing them, because we had some young guys really step up last season and fulfill some big roles in the offensive line. And, he's going to have a big test this year, replacing left tackle, which is, kind of your anchor of that offensive line down there, or over there on the quarterback's blind side. So, yeah, I think I would tend to agree that offensive line, we definitely need to land a few of those guys.
And one quick shout out, I'll give a shout out. And one quick note: 6 days. We are 6 days from 2025 running back Gideon Davidson. He's going to be announcing his commitment. I think that's one that Clemson fans should keep a close eye on. He was just here last week for the Dabo Sweeney camp. Left with an offer, and I don't know. I feel good about where Clemson is. So if you guys are worried about 2025 recruiting this far out, I think that's one to watch. And wanted to give a shout out to CJ Spiller, because not only landing David Ajumame in this class, but getting an elite running back for 2025, possibly, and Gideon Davidson. So I wanted to kind of make that note, because that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah, he's supposed to commit June 14th. And awesome. Yeah, like I said, like where Clemson is, the tape is elite. So I'm really excited. I really like it's crazy how different we feel about not only wide receiver recruiting, but running back recruiting, the two positions where Clemson fans have had the most gripe about the last couple cycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how things can change, just that quickly, just with a few commits I think Clemson has a really bright future at wide receiver. All of a sudden, at wide receiver and running back. So
yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is, it's really hard, and I'm speaking to myself here as well. It's really hard as a college football fan to remain patient, especially when you've had kind of the run that Clemson has had, and seeing 2 seasons that we saw with massively decrease. I mean, the floor just fell out for the offense. The defense was still there for the most part, not as good, but it was still there. But the bottom just kind of fell out of the offense. So it's really hard to see that, and then you kind of see the recruiting trail, and they're getting guys and they're recruiting guys, but maybe it's a little bit underwhelming. But those two, specifically those two positions, those guys had never really been coaches before, right? Never really been on a recruiting trail, or really understood the ins and outs of recruiting, and maybe how grueling that process is and how labor intensive, and maybe how to go about it. So maybe you're starting to see a couple years in, CJ Spiller starting to get his footing, starting to bring in some really highly touted running backs, and the same with Tyler Grisham. So I think there's something to be said there. Is just maybe that's some of Dabo Swinney developing his coaching staff as much as he's focused on developing his players too.
100%. And in Tyler Grisham and CJ Spiller's case, I mean, I think one thing, as critical as we both have been of those two guys,
For sure.
on the recruiting trail, CJ Spiller not so much on the field as Tyler Grisham, but both definitely have had their detractors about their recruiting abilities in the past couple of cycles. And I think one thing that kind of changed, or not necessarily changed, but I think kind of went under the radar for a lot of fans, was at the end of the day, when you are a new position coach, you don't have the relationships, the connections that a seasoned position coach has. You have to go into these schools and build trust with high schools, the coaches, the administration, and of course the players. And you have to build that rapport with a lot of these high schools that you're recruiting. And I think it took some time. I think it took some time for Tyler and CJ to really get their feet up under them, and kind of they had to take some lumps, some losses on the trail. But I think they've kind of figured out what kind of recruiting strategies work for them, how they communicate with these guys, and how they best sell Clemson. I think they've kind of picked up on that, and they're starting to hit their stride. So I'm really pleased with kind of the growth there from those two. And Clemson desperately needed it, because it certainly hurt, and it was certainly frustrating in previous cycles to kind of to have get these elite guys interested, but not being able to close the deal. And
right.
It's and now they're getting in and closing the deal early, which is all of a sudden you go from missing all your top guys to you bring, not only do you bring your top guys in, but you get them to shut down their recruitments immediately. That's pretty incredible. So
basically, as soon as the calendar rolls to summer, these dudes are shutting down their commitment, permanently. At least you would hope, barring anything crazy out there that happens. But I mean, it's just to your point. I mean, it's not just getting out on the recruiting trail and learning those nuances and stuff like that. I like kind of how you put it there, just talking about they have to figure out how they sell Clemson. Because if you're just regurgitating what Dabo Swinney says, or if you saw how Jeff Scott recruited, or Tony Elliott recruited, or whatever else coach that you've been on, because they go together sometimes. You kind of have to develop your own thing, because otherwise it just comes off as robotic and regurgitating just buzz lines from a particular university, and dudes can really pick up on that, and they feel that if you're not being authentic. So I think those two dudes have obviously figured it out, and when you get guys like this to recruit this early, guess what? they're going to start recruiting for us too. And they
Yep.
start hitting up people. They start hitting people in their DMs and, talking to the other guys. These guys work out together. They go to camps together, you know, um, you know,
They
passing
have group
camp.
chats together.
Yeah. Group chats together. They go to passing camps together. They're on, FaceTime and stuff together. So these dudes, with all the technology and the social media and stuff that we have now, they're all so connected, especially when you're, on that elite list, top 300 in the country. A lot of those dudes, they just know each other. They go to a lot of the same places when they're getting work in the off season. So it's good to have big names like that touting Clemson right now, and hopefully help us. We got a good push going right now. We got a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail. Our class is up to 8 according to 247, 5 according to On3.
4
You know,
actually
four
on 3.
on On3. So, but you can't let your foot off the gas. We need to close this recruiting class just like we've kind of opened it up with close very well, and hopefully get some of those big time offensive linemen that our boys going after.
And I will say this, and you got to give Tyler Grisham and CJ Spiller their flowers, absolutely, for closing on these guys. But it also helps just tremendously to have a guy like Garrett Riley, finally bringing an offense that you can sell. Because I think as much as Tyler Grisham and CJ Spiller had struggled to get their top guys in previous classes, they really didn't have much to sell these recruits.
Yeah.
I mean, the wide receiver production had fallen off tremendously. The struggles on offense, it definitely hurt a ton. And Garrett Riley coming in, and with the connection he has to the state of Texas, especially, I think it's helped a ton as well. So when you have that kind of synergy with the staff, you have an offense you can sell, and all of that, and there's a clear vision that you can sell to these recruits. It makes a huge difference. And that was a big reason why Bryant Wesco came in, was because he felt like that Clemson had a plan for him offensively, and he thought he was in a good position to have a lot of success here. So
that's a
big deal. It's a big
deal. That's a very very good point that you make. Not that I didn't think about it, but that's a great point you make. Garrett Riley definitely 100% made a difference in this recruiting class. I mean, you just see it on just looking at the skill position from last year to this year. Not that we didn't pick up good skill guys last year. Obviously, we did. Look at Antonio Williams. Guys we brought in, are going to be just fine. I think they're going to develop into really good receivers. But I think it's important that Dabo Swinney made a change, and I think this recruiting class would probably look a little bit different right now if he hadn't made that change. There's a lot of excitement around Clemson's program, kind of like a renewed energy, if you will. And I don't think not that you wouldn't have got any of these recruits or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. Clemson's culture and the standard that Clemson has been for a very long time, it still holds a lot of weight regardless of who's sitting in that offensive coordinator position. But at the same time, you got to be able to sell these dudes. And I don't know if it would have had the same impact if you're rolling into the 2023 season with Brandon Streeter as your offensive coordinator, because he talked a lot in the offseason about the change, and we didn't see very much change in the offense. So, yeah, Garrett Riley, definitely an amazing hire. Obviously is already impacting the recruiting trail, as well as just the overall outlook for the Clemson program. I definitely think we've gone up in a lot of people's opinions because of that hire. So, including the recruits.
Absolutely. And you did this without a single quarterback commit in your class.
No quarterbacks.
No quarterback commit. You get 2 elite receivers.
That's pretty.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. All the quarterbacks that we kind of talked about and recruited and went after, they all committed elsewhere, and we still nabbed 2 of the best receivers in the class. That's not easy to do.
No,
that's definitely not easy to do.
Especially in the case of TJ Moore beating a school that took one of the quarterback targets that you really, really wanted.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Apparently he was, according to everybody, he was a Florida lean, right? Yeah. Heading into his official visit at Florida. And of course that visit is not happening this weekend because he's committed to Clemson. So, man, what a weekend. What momentum we have to kick off the summer. What a way to kick off the summer. Before we know it, we'll be heading into fall camp. So it's always good to have this type of energy around the program, heading into the season. And I'm sure in the next few weeks and months, the recruiting class will fill up with a lot more of these dudes that were involved this weekend. And I'm sure hopefully we maintain and continue to climb the rankings and put together a really killer class.
Yep. Feel really good about that. Also, shout out to David Ajumame, Nolan Hauser.
Yes.
Those 2 guys, especially, Christian Betancourt as well. Like those 3 guys have been incredible recruiters already for the class. Especially David, he's a blast to follow on Twitter. If you guys aren't on Twitter, or if you are, give David a follow. He's been great. It's been great to kind of tune in and follow him, especially during this past week, because of he's been dropping little nuggets and kind of getting the fans excited. So that's it's always great. So. And Nolan as well. He's been as active as I've ever seen a kicker be in a recruiting class. So love it, man.
That's awesome.
And I'm just saying it now. Clemson's not done yet. There's more. There is more on the way.
Yeah.
So really, really excited for this next these next couple of months to play out. Because I think Clemson has put themselves in position to land a really, really strong class. So
it's going to be a big-time class for Clemson, man. It's going to be a big-time class. I saw a comment earlier from our comment section over there talking about Ajumame, and they were like, man, this dude looks like a grown man. He looks like he's 3 years into his NFL career. So
wait till you see him his senior year, because he's going to be. And it was funny is he hasn't even been the main starter the past couple of years at his height. He's going to be the guy this year. So
he's going to shoot up the ratings boards.
Yeah, I think he's going to be due for a huge bump. So
yeah,
and it was great to just secure him early. He's been a phenomenal ambassador for the class, and he's been a phenomenal recruiter. And even the guys, even like the 2023 guys, Chris Vizina is still doing his thing as well.
That's awesome.
And Cade and all those guys. So this really was just a team effort, and it also helped. And we didn't even really mention it. Clemson having the regionals, going on. During the weekend and bringing the recruits to the game, as disappointing as the outcome of that was,
it didn't work out.
Especially the 1-0 game. That was tough.
Yeah.
It was a great event, and obviously you had a lot of it was a lot of momentum. You saw Deshaun Watson there as well, and he definitely was able to talk to a lot of the recruits and kind of help sell Clemson as well. So, yeah, just a really phenomenal weekend overall.
Yeah, man, Clemson killed it. Clearly, they have this this summer. I don't know what they call it, but this summer recruiting weekend that they have to kind of kick off summer is it's working, and it's working in a big way for recruiting. So I'm glad Dabo decided to give it a shot last year. Worked out great, and it doesn't seem the results don't seem to be any different so far this year. Clearly still got a long way to go in the class, but it's looking very promising. Now Sammy Brown and Brian Wesco and TJ Moore got to go do some work on the recruiting trail for us.
They already are. They already are.
They got to go hit their boys up.
All right. While we're on the topic of recruiting, do you want to take some recruiting questions?
Yeah, let's send it to the comment section. If you guys got any recruiting questions that you want to ask myself or Jordan about any specific recruit or whatever you guys are curious about, we'll give you guys a few minutes to get those questions in, and we'll do our best to give you either our opinion or what we know about the particular situation. But yeah, so while we're waiting,
yeah, man, I'm excited too. I'm excited too. I can't wait for the season to get here. We're what, 80 something days away?
What is it
from week 1?
Yeah, 80, 85 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. No,
somewhere in there.
We're getting close. It's coming down to the wire. So what you were saying is he will be the Bellcat. I think he's talking David. Yeah,
absolutely. It's May. Yeah, he'll be RB1 for his high school this coming season. So I look for some huge stats coming out of that dude this season, man. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Who is likely coming to the cookout? I don't have any information on that yet. I would definitely expect the pretty much all the commits to be there.
Yeah,
obviously. But we'll see who else makes their way over there. Tricksters, what up, Bowman? That's my boy Brady. I met him during the week. He's been in the Twitter Spaces.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, so good to see you, Brady. He's my biggest fan apparently. So
hey, there you go. What's up, Brady? Tricksters, man. Thanks for stopping by. You are following, according to what I know, which is very limited about Twitter, the most entertaining Twitter page there is, and that is Jordan Bowman. So
yeah, I like to keep it interesting.
Sure. I don't blame you for being a fan.
What up, Bowman and Cream? How do you think Noble Johnson will do this year? That's a good question. I'm really interested. I'm high on Noble. I like Noble a lot. I think it all depends on how his fall camp goes, whether he really works his way into a big time spot in the rotation.
Yeah.
I think he can. He came in, he had a little bit of an adjustment period, but he certainly showed a lot of flashes of what he can be. I thought he had some really nice moments in the spring game. He had some moments where he looked like a true freshman, but I love his size. He can run. I think that the speed element has kind of been a little bit underrated. I think he can move, and I think he's got some pretty formidable speed. So if he puts it together in fall camp, I think he has a chance to be a contributor this year. So we'll see. Any recruits under the radar worth mentioning? Good question. I'm going to go with Ricardo Jones, safety. I think Clemson has done a really good job with him. I wanted to mention him earlier, but he completely slipped my mind. But Ricardo Jones, 4-star safety, I would keep my eye on him. I think Clemson has done a really good job with him. And, with KJ Bolden being the primary guy, he's kind of fallen by the wayside, but I think he would be a fantastic addition to this class, this safety class. And obviously KJ Bolden, we still have there's still a little bit more to go before we really get a true idea or before he really shuts his recruitment down. But if you don't land a guy like him, Ricardo Jones would be a fantastic get. And also Malcolm Ziegler, he's the newest safety offer for Clemson, a 3-star guy. But if you've seen him, if you've seen pictures of him, the dude has arms like he's got like Michael Jordan and Space Jam type length.
Oh man,
it's pretty insane. But he's got legit speed, covers really well. The length is fantastic. He's got really good ball skills. So I keep an eye on him as well, Malcolm Ziegler. Jason Priest, yeah, he's really high on Noble. Yeah. I think Noble definitely has he has an opportunity. Just depends on how much ground he makes up in fall camp.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Adam Randall how he goes this year as well.
Happy to finally get a 5-star wide receiver. Good job, Jeff. No, well, no, Jeff Scott is not back, guys. I've seen that's been I haven't seen it so much from Clemson fans, but a lot of opposing fan bases, especially in the wake of these most recent wide receiver commits, they think that Jeff Scott had anything to do with this. He did not. Jeff Scott is not employed by Clemson.
I heard it's funny somebody brings up Jeff Scott because I was watching, I think it was 247's video on Bryant Westco's recruitment to Clemson, and they mentioned Jeff Scott and they were like, yeah, Jeff Scott took an off the field role on the Clemson staff this year. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Jeff Scott's not at Clemson. He's not off the field. He's not on the field. He's not, at least not in any official capacity at Clemson, as far as I know. But I just thought it was funny, like, because, to your point, like, I hear a lot of, opposing fan bases talk about, oh, yeah, Jeff Scott's back. Now they're recruiting, highly touted wide receivers and all that stuff. And then I heard the 247 YouTube page, one of their guys say it, and I was like, what in the world?
Yeah, but it was I think because there were so many reports when Garrett Riley was initially hired that Jeff Scott was also coming back and taking an off-field role, that it never got correct. I remember Larry Williams over at Tiger Illustrated coming out and saying he spoke directly with Jeff, and he was like, I am not taking a role. You can go to Clemson's website. Jeff Scott is not on staff. Yeah. But it's kind of funny to just I've seen it like a few times from opposing fan bases, and I don't even like I've corrected one person, but I'm like it's not even worth it because
it doesn't even matter.
People think, but so many people think Jeff Scott is back. He's not back. He does not plan on being employed in any capacity, at least for this year. He wants to spend more time with his family, take a break. Obviously, he's coming. I mean, he's being paid by South Florida. I mean, he
doesn't need to do anything. Yeah, he's not hurting for money. He doesn't need to do anything. If I was him, I'd take at least a year off too. I mean, it sucks being a head coach sometimes. Do they get paid and compensated? Handsomely, but it's also a very stressful job, and all the pressure's on you. So, if you get fired and that particular team still owes you money for, another year or two, why not just go chill out for a year and, collect your thoughts, spend time with your family, get your head right. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back at Clemson in some capacity, whether it be next season or in the future. But he's obviously not there now. But everybody's going to keep saying it, so who cares? Yep. Thanks, Jeff Scott. We appreciate the Brian Wesco and TJ Moore commitment. Somebody will clip that and be like, "See, I knew it was back."
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who's going to push Shipley this season? Well, I mean, other than Phil Maffa,
Phil Maffa.
I could see Keith Adams absolutely working his way into the rotation. Dominic Thomas. I'm interested to see what happens with.
He had a good spring game.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the freshman running backs look like. Jay Haynes and Jarvis Green.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I think Shipley and Maffa are your two guys. They should be getting the majority of the carries.
Yep.
And maybe you give Keith Adams a little bit of run and to kind of spell them, but it's definitely going to be the Will Shipley, Phil Maffa show this year, especially with both of them on the field at the same time.
That's what I'm saying. Seeing some 2-back sets, maybe where Shipley motions out to the slot, we could see some good plays come from some 2-back sets when you got two guys back there as good as Maffa and Shipley. Oh man, that is quite the running back room.
Yeah, why people are still saying that whole thing. Will Stellato finally be healthy and break out? Will Stellato finally be healthy?
I think so. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I mean, I think the pendulum's got to swing the other direction. I think I hope that he is healthy. Now, will he break out? Now, that's a different question because he's missed so much time. He's missed so many reps.
Yeah.
It's very possible. He's going to have a lot of ground to make up when he is fully healthy. And that might limit his ability to really make a huge impact. But if he does, I mean, this was a big time recruiting win over Ohio State when he came out, and he's had some really awful injury luck and hasn't really been able to see the field very much. So,
right.
This is it's an important year for him. He's a junior this year, I believe. So, I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, but if he comes in and has a big year, that would be a very pleasant surprise because he does have talent. I think he can play, but we'll have to see it first. Why are we only taking 2 wide receivers in the 24 class? I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. You're really not going to have much attrition after this year. I think, the only possible guy that I could see right now, leaving, potentially for the NFL is Bo Collins.
Bo Collins, yeah.
Brandon Spector is still in the room, but after this year, he still has his COVID year of eligibility, I believe.
Yeah.
So there's a chance he comes back as well. And other than that, there's literally nobody in that room that's really has a shot of leaving unless they transfer.
Yeah, barring transfers, and Dabo Swinney has a number for each position. So he's kind of the architect of kind of how they construct their roster, and he's pretty he sticks pretty right on the money with those numbers. You've seen him flex in the past a time or two with different positions, based off of circumstances, but he has hard numbers for each position. So when they reach that number, they kind of shut it down and move on to other positions of need.
And having so many guys come back, certainly it affects the numbers. It's just the wide receiver room is crowded. There's a lot of bodies, and there's not a lot of guys that are really going to be going anywhere next year unless they decide to transfer. Then the calculus changes a little bit. But Even
Right,
then,
and
it
you
would only
saw,
be a 1 or 2 probably.
and you've seen it this offseason. When Dabo Swinney kind of took a bunch of heat for, even mentioning the fact that some walk-ons might have to give up their that they're not that they'd have to give up their scholarship, that their scholarship wouldn't be renewed for the upcoming season due to more guys came back than he was expecting. So they're sitting at 85, or they got to get down to that 85 number, before we play games.
Yep. 2023 recruit not named Peter Woods that will impress everyone the most. Also hope everyone is doing well. Thank you, Mike. I hope you're doing well as well. I'm going to go. It would be easy to name one of the defensive linemen, Stephylon Green, TJ Parker. Those are guys that have a real shot to come in and make some real noise as true freshmen. But I'm going to go into the secondary. I'm going to go with Khalil Barnes.
Yeah. That dude had a killer spring game, man.
Yeah. But he had a killer spring game. He had a killer spring in general. I mean, just this was a great late add to the class. He was really underrated, kind of flew under the radar, late in the year. And then he was a Wake Forest commit. And then he all of a sudden his recruitment kind of blew up a little bit. He got offers from Notre Dame. Obviously, Clemson came in, some other big time programs. And it was huge to win that one. And it was a great late addition. And I think Khalil Barnes has a chance to make an impact in the safety room. He came in really ready to play, and he's he's a well-coached kid, but he flies to the ball. He covers really well. He's a guy that's going to be really, really good moving forward. And I think he has a chance to have a really strong year. Do you have one?
No, I mean, I agree with you there. And I think one of the key things there too is we had a lot of injuries kind of in the secondary last year, and then that safety position. So that's even more, not that we're going to have the same issues this season, but you never know. And for a guy to come in spring and kind of do what he did and really show up and show out and get the attention of not only the coaches, but the fans and the media and everybody, I think he's definitely got a bright future. I'd probably lean a little bit safer. One of those D linemen, they're probably, because of the depth issues, especially on the edge, one of those young guys are probably I would think the best chance at really making a difference on this team because of the depth issues and because of the injury history, unfortunately, of the veteran guys that are still there.
I'm with you. Yeah, this D line group is going to have a really big impact this year.
And it was a crazy D line class, so no shortage of talent. No shortage of talent came in.
Here is a head scratcher. I'm not going to say why didn't Brandon Streeter have 2 back sets on the field? Well, he did, but that was the problem. He didn't do it enough,
right?
And that was kind of the problem in 2021 too. You saw the impact that when Shipley and even like Kobe Pace, it got a lot more run in 2021. But those 2 back sets when Clemson had 2 backs on the field, they were really effective, and it added some new life to the offense. It helped out the run game a ton, and it gave the defense more to think about. And when you saw Clemson go to it last year with Shipley and Maffa on the field, whether they were in the backfield or Shipley was out, it was out split at wide receiver. They didn't do that a ton, but when they did it a couple times, and they had success because it forces the defense to kind of to change their how they read their keys and all that, and it changes their coverage responsibilities. It's a nightmare to deal with, and with Shipley's ability to catch passes out of the backfield, and I think Phil Maffa is going to surprise people with how he catches passes as well. I think it's going to be tough to deal with, and obviously we know how good those two are at running, at traditional running back duties. So I expect to see more of that with Riley, and I expect him to use those two in some creative ways. So
you get them out there mismatched on some linebackers and defensive ends and stuff like that are dropping into coverage. good things are going to happen for you. But I mean, that's part of it. It's not that Streeter didn't do any of those things, but it just seemed like he always went away from it. Like he attacked the middle of the field a few times last year. And I remember watching the games like, man, yeah, that's awesome. And then you would never see it again. He'd do it like once a game, and then for a big game, and then it'd be like, oh well, we're not going back to that play. So that was the frustrating part of watching Clemson's offense.
Yeah,
I think they had things in there that would work, and they, for whatever reason, they just didn't get called very often.
Banks Pope for Heisman, yes, that's not even a question. With a good wide receiver core, I say Cade Klubnik for Heisman in 2023. He's a long shot. He has some decent odds.
He could be.
If this offense has the type of year that we all hope it does, I think that there's a shot that Cade could have a really nice season, and especially if he takes those necessary progressions to and improving his game. I think there's a chance. I'm not expecting it, but I think that regardless, I think Cade is due for a really nice year in 2023. So,
Jordan, you know better than that. He's a Clemson quarterback.
Yeah. Well, even just to get to New York. I mean, our quarterbacks can get to New York. They just
yes,
don't get to
we can get to New York. That's the peak. That's where we peak out when we get to New York. That's it.
I watched some of the first half of the spring game again. P.W. absolutely baptized Harris. Yeah, and that's another impact freshman that I think you could see some. You could see a lot of run. He came in very, very ready to play. So Peter Woods didn't make him look like it, unfortunately. But he fought. He battled, and there he didn't lose every single rep. But he when he did lose a rep, it was bad. Noticeable.
Yeah, it was bad.
But that's just Peter Woods, and he's a game breaker. I've never felt as confident as I do about a true freshman as I do about Peter Woods. He's going to play. He's going to play a lot, and he's going to be a load for every single team he plays on the schedule.
That dude is an animal. The interior of our defensive line is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, not to mention we still got Tyler Davis.
Yeah.
Rukaroro. I mean, it's just, and to see what Peter Woods came in and did, absolutely, man. But also Harris, like that dude, he's gonna be the real deal, man. I got a lot of faith in that guy. I liked what I saw. He got owned quite a few times by Peter Woods, but that doesn't count. That's not fair.
Are we going to hear Dietrich Pennington's name called much in 2023? I'm not betting on it. The guard room is really, I mean, it's pretty heavily populated now. There's a lot of bodies there, and he's kind of he's in the mix right now. He's got to really commit himself to being in shape. I mean, I think he's improved in that aspect, but also just being more consistent.
But Dabo's talked about him in the past and his just lack of consistency.
Yeah, but we'll see if he does play. If we do see him in the rotation a lot, I think that's I think it's a good sign that it means he's made some strides. But I don't expect to. I'm not betting on it so far based on what I've seen and heard.
Yeah.
God forbid if something were to happen to Cade Klubnik, is Christopher Vezina ready to go? I think the question you should be asking, at least currently, is Hunter Helms ready to go?
Is Hunter Helms ready?
Because I don't see Christopher Vezina as the
he is not ready
right now,
and I don't think he's even close to being the backup right now.
Yeah.
No shade to Christopher Vezina at all. But just the small sample size that we have so far, and the fact that just from what the coach has said coming out of spring ball and the small sample size that we saw in the spring game, he's not. No, it would definitely, God forbid anything happened, but if it did, it would 100% be Hunter Helms that would be coming in, which is crazy. Good for him, man.
Yeah, I mean,
way to battle, way to just keep working, keep your head down, get better, and now you're the number 2 dude behind Cade Klubnik on a team like Clemson. I mean, former walk-on, respect for that guy.
But is Hunter Helms, is he ready to come in and play if we needed him to? I don't know.
I
really don't know. That's something, I'm not going to lie to you. That's something I am concerned about. But I'll say this about Chris Vizina. I don't think that it should be like Clemson fans should be worried that he's not the backup quarterback. If you know about Chris and his his skill set and what he was in what he was in high school, he didn't play for the most talented high school. He was kind of a gamer. He wasn't necessarily the best at reading defenses and playing within structure. I think that's something that's he needs a little bit more reps and time to really get comfortable with. He's kind of raw, but he has the physical talent. The arm is definitely there. I think he's going to be a really good player. It's just he didn't come in as ready and as polished as maybe some previous blue chip quarterbacks that Clemson has had. So it's going to take some work. Luckily, I think you have a really good quarterback coach and offensive coordinator in Garrett Riley that's going to be able to bring him along. And I think he'll get more comfortable. And hey, even if he doesn't win the job in fall camp, there's always the chance that, it's not like the depth chart is just set for the rest of the year after fall camp happens. Things can change. And as Chris gets more comfortable in the system, I definitely think there's a good shot that he could work his way and maybe be that backup. But we'll see. And you keep in mind, you also have Paul Tyson in the room as well. I'm interested to see he's dealt with injury a lot during the spring, so it's not really clear where he kind of stands. So fall camp is going to tell us a lot about really how the quarterback depth chart shakes out. And there's a lot of fluidity behind Cade for that backup job. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, he'll be fine. Christopher Vizina is going to be just fine. It doesn't matter where he's on the depth chart right now. Garrett Riley's track record with quarterbacks and this system that is really QB friendly, that Clemson's now running, he'll be just fine. When they need him, he'll be ready. I have full confidence.
Helms made some bad reads in the spring. Yeah. Well, I mean, all 3 quarterbacks.
All the quarterbacks did.
Did. But yeah, none of the quarterbacks looked particularly great in the spring game. They didn't have the best days. They need to give Helms a lot of snaps in the first 3 games, or at least in game 2 and 3. Yeah, I think it'd be good to get those guys in, and that's something that Clemson hasn't really they weren't really able to do that last year because they messed around and their quote unquote cupcake games. I mean, the Furman game was more of a struggle than it should have been. The Louisiana Tech game, you take DJ out and put Cade in, you don't do anything on offense, and all of a sudden Louisiana Tech goes down and scores. Now it's a 14-point game, and you got to throw your starters out so you don't completely implode. So hopefully, if the offense has the kind of success that allows your backup to really get some work in, more akin to what happened in the ACC championship game, where you actually were able to get Hunter Johnson some reps because Cade played so well that game. So
but past couple years, Clemson
even a significantly worse opponent.
Yeah, past couple years, Clemson hasn't been able to put people away. So your backups don't get very many reps when you can't put people away.
Will Tyson be ready? Yeah, that's the question. If he has, if he's the guy, is he ready? We don't know. Because we haven't seen him at all. So, is Cade ready? Is a better question. That's got to be answered as well. I mean, you have to hope that he's made the strides and he's really picking up the offense and the guys around him are comfortable as well. But there's no question about Cade's leadership. There's no question about his talent. It's just being comfortable. And I tend to think that when you get him in, to live action where he's not constrained by some of the rules of the spring and all of that and the no contact, when he really is just allowed to kind of play loose, I think you'll see. Some really good results. I mean, you saw it in the ACC championship game. He looked. If they can make him comfortable back there, he's going to make plays.
Yep.
I think give CV a couple of years under Riley in the system. I think he'll be a very capable starter for us after Klubnik. If he were if CK were to leave early, do you all agree? Yeah, totally.
For sure.
I think Chris is. I think Vizina absolutely has he has tremendous talent. I think he has all the tools to be a really good starter here. And so just you got to give him some time. He's not every quarterback recruit is created equal and just comes in and ready to start. I think the good thing is that Riley's system is very quarterback friendly, and I think it's just about once if he gets more and more comfortable, you'll start to see him kind of work his way up the depth chart, because I think he is very talented and he'll be able to play.
Yeah, and it'll come with that building that continuity on the offensive line as well, right? In that spring game, a lot of guys were out, so it wasn't really Clemson's full complement of starters and stuff out there along either line of scrimmage. So that has a lot to do with the quarterback's comfortability in the pocket and sitting back there and making decisions too. So it's not just all on them. And then skill positions got to step up. Look for a huge jump in the receiving core this year. Bo Collins needs to have a breakout year. He needs to have that kind of season that we all know he's capable of having. Hopefully it won't be hampered by any injuries. But Chris Vizina will be fine. I got full confidence that Cade Klubnik could be just fine this season. All of those sacks in the spring game are not all sacks. Cade has the ability to make a sure sack turn into a 20-yard gain really quickly. So
Cade's biggest problem this spring to me was the purple jersey syndrome. At least from what we saw in the spring game, he definitely got kind of looked like he wasn't the most aware of his, and everything. And he just kind of took the no contact stuff for granted. And it kind of made him bail when he didn't need to, made him sit in the pocket too long at times. So he needs to kind of really get in sync with his internal clock and know when it's time to go or when to pull the trigger or just sit and wait. So that kind of, that's going to come with more live reps. So we'll see. Do we have a slam dunk kicker yet?
Nope.
We have some talented kickers.
Yes. We have some inconsistently talented kickers.
Yeah. That we still got that still has to play itself out. I mean, I tend to think it'll be Robert Gunn.
I think it will be too.
But who in his own right was one of the best kickers in his class. So I mean, like I said, his talent is there. It's just developing consistency there. And
yeah, I mean,
you're replacing a longtime starter, and not only does he have to be familiar with kicks, but and get right with with field goals, but obviously kickoff duties and who's taking over those, and obviously we can go on and on about the punting, but that's going to be.
Don't get me started.
So special teams is certainly
it's a big question mark.
Big question mark.
Big question mark. I think you're right. I think it probably will be Robert Gunn. He's obviously got the biggest leg. But you know how Dabo Swinney feels about it. Whoever's the most consistent kicker, that's the guy that's going to go out there, regardless of leg talent. Obviously you want a dude that can bomb the ball and boom kicks and get touchbacks, and stuff like that. But without consistency, that was the big problem with the punting game last year, right? Swanson would hit an amazing punt, and then he'd hit 3 other punts that you're like, what are we doing right now? Like, so consistency is going to be key.
I think lack of confidence in each other and play calling on the offense was the biggest problem last year. I see that problem being resolved this year. Yeah, I think so. It was very clear these last 2 seasons that, the players weren't very comfortable and very confident in the system they were running. And comments that have been made, especially in the wake of, Brandon Streeter's firing, it was very clear that, as optimistic and happy as they seemed to be, during the season, there were certainly internally some questions and some frustrations internally about kind of how not just because of the scheme, but just because obviously they weren't having a whole lot of success, and it's not a lot of fun to be playing football and you're not being successful, obviously. So, these guys certainly seem to have a lot more fun and confidence in the system, and I think that's a really great sign for what the prospects are for this year.
Yep. The fun is in the winning.
The more I think about it, landing Sammy Brown is just a payback for Jarron Kanak. That would, if it was, that would be that's that Petty Dabo coming out.
There you go.
I didn't think Petty Dabo would come out against Brent Venables of all people, but because obviously Oklahoma was very much in it for Sammy Brown as well. But hey, it wouldn't. I don't know. Petty Dabo is he's a very, very powerful guy. So
I like it. I'm not mad at it.
But I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that. But it if you want to look at it that way, that is kind of interesting, just kind of how that worked, because you had Jarron Kanak committed, Brent Venables goes to OU, and Jarron Kanak decommits and follows them over there. So you kind of respond by taking their biggest linebacker target from them on their board.
Yep. That's how it goes, man.
James Thompson, if our O does what it should, don't have to worry about punting. Yeah, you see, that's the hope is that you don't, you're going to be on your opponent's side of the field a ton anyway, that you're not kicking field goals, or you're scoring points.
Kicking field goals, scoring touchdowns, for sure. Obviously, expecting far less 3 and outs this coming season than we had last season. Even if you're not putting up, points, you're not going to put points up on every single drive. But it seemed like the 3 and outs were just an avalanche of 3 and outs last season, and that really affects your defense and just the mentality of your whole team. So, sustaining drives, and then maybe we won't need Swanson very much.
Yeah. All right. I think I've exhausted a lot of the questions.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, that John Sarian comes in with another one. Let's address this one, and then are you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, man. I think we've done all we could do with this show. I think it was a pretty good show.
John comes in. Final question: who do you think will be the second toughest ACC opponent this year? FSU will be the first. Yeah, I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah.
Second toughest ACC opponent. Okay, so let's go through it. So you've got Florida, North Carolina, you got
Miami,
Syracuse. Right, you do play Syracuse this year. NC State.
Yeah, let me. Schedule.
Georgia Tech.
So we got Florida State, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Miami.
Okay, that's all of them. I don't know why I forgot Wake.
Yeah. Let's see. I would say.
That's really tough because I'm very interested with Miami. I'm very interested to see how those coordinator changes shake out because if they hit, they could be a really much improved team. They also brought in a really strong recruiting class, and they have some true freshmen that could be impact players as well.
I'm really between Miami and North Carolina. But
I'm going to lean North Carolina because I know they lost a lot, but Drake May is still a very talented quarterback, and you have to deal with that. I'm interested. I think Wake is being undervalued a little bit because Sam Hartman is gone, but they still have a lot of talent.
They're still very good,
and they could be very much improved on defense. So it's, but I'm going to go with North Carolina. I don't feel great about it because really after Florida State, it's kind of a mess.
I think
I'm not too high on Syracuse. NC State is interesting because of the Robert Anae, Brennan Armstrong experiment.
We'll see how that goes.
And they still, in NC State, they're always tough on defense, so that could be an interesting game as well. But yeah, I'm going to go North Carolina, but just because that's probably the best quarterback you face all season.
Yeah,
at least other than Jordan Travis. So
I think I'm going to lean Miami. I don't know, but I just don't trust North Carolina's defense, man. Their defense just lets them down. I have no doubt in the talent of Drake May and the stuff that he will do, regardless of what defense he's playing. But I don't trust their defense, and I don't think they've made any changes that would make me trust it any more this season than I did, last season or the season before that. So for that reason, I would lean Miami.
You know what? Georgia Tech is intriguing. I didn't mention it, but they've made some really sneaky transfer portal additions, especially at wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see who starts at quarterback. Is it Haynes King? Is it what's the other kid that starts? Zach Pyron.
Mm-hmm.
That could be interesting. They improved a lot defensively last year, especially when Jeff Collins got fired. Ironically, considering Jeff Collins is a defensive guy, but their defense played a lot better the second half of the year, and they have some guys that can play.
Right.
So that's a team that's I don't think Clemson fans are thinking about a ton, but Georgia they're interesting because Brent Key they seem to get a lot. He seemed to get a lot more out of that roster than Jeff Collins was able to, and they seem to the players at least seem to buy into what he's to his coaching. So we'll see, but I think North Carolina, you're going Miami.
Yeah,
I think
Miami.
I think you can make arguments for both. But yeah, almost. Had something stuck in my throat, but almost. Oh Jesus! 1 second.
Don't die.
It'd be a shame to end the show with me, dying.
Yeah, on camera. Yeah, that'd be pretty bad. That'd be a bad way to end it. WB2DX. Yeah, I do think the offense is catching up. I think they're, obviously the change of coordinator, change in philosophy. Obviously see the personnel that we're starting to bring in. Yeah, they're trending in the right direction. But again, it's all got to happen on the field. It doesn't matter. None of Garrett Riley's points or yards carry over to Clemson from TCU. So it's a whole new system. It's going to be a little bit different because I think it is, when you change teams, it's a little bit different due to personnel and just overall, just how you got to run things when you change locations and personalities that you're dealing with. So, but yeah, I think the offense is 100% catching up.
All right.
Oh yeah. I think that'll do us for the show, Jordan. Another full episode on Clemson recruiting. What a weekend! What a week to be a Clemson Tiger. It's always amazing. 3 huge recruits. It's not going to end there. I guarantee, well, I can't guarantee, but I'm sure, I'm hopeful that we'll have another recruit to talk about maybe next week. By the
There's a
time
pretty good shot of that.
yeah, by the time we have this show again next Thursday at 7 p.m., I'm sure we will have at least one more recruit to talk about that we will add to this 2024 class, and then we will be 1 week closer to the start of fall camp, and that's always pretty exciting as well. So we really do appreciate all you guys stopping by. We had a pretty great turnout, man. I was looking up there at one point. We had over 30 people in here on our live stream. So we appreciate you guys coming out, interacting in the live chat section with us, asking us questions, contributing to the show. We really do appreciate it. So hit that like button, subscribe, share it with a friend if you haven't already. Yeah, Jordan, you wanna send our fine audience off for the week?
Yep. Once again, great show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, we're going to have more news to talk about next week on the recruiting trail. I think there's a really good shot at it. So keep your notifications on. Share it with a friend. We're trying to build our audience here. And, yeah, it's been a great week to be a Clemson Tiger. I feel like it's going to be another great week next week. But, yeah, we will see you guys next Thursday, 7 p.m.
Yep, 85 days. 85 days. We will see you next week, next Thursday, 7 p.m. Till next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He is Jordan Bowman. We'll see you next week.
Later, y'all.
See ya.